Welcome to the FanDuel wide receiver analysis for week 2. I'm Jason Gilbo, Gilbo11. With me is Justin Elick at Big Italy 42. Taking a look at some cash game, GPP, and value receivers for this week. Pretty strong options here on FanDuel. I feel like overall, I mean, you did the DraftKings ones. It's obviously going in kind of a little bit of a direction here. Was that more so for pricing?
Yeah, I mean, I tried to find the guys that I felt like weren't necessarily like underpriced, but where it was a substantial difference between the two. That's why I kind of highlighted AJ Green in that one as cash game option, which I think he's fine on FanDuel and cash as well. But $300 difference between him and Antonio Brown on FanDuel, I think kind of, you go with Antonio Brown there. I think AJ Green, like I said, still perfectly fine option. He's actually been better against the Steelers than Brown has been against the Bengals over the last couple of years. But I mean, really, like I said on the other podcast is I think, especially in GPPs, playing both of these guys makes a lot of sense because they both have just tremendous floors. They're going to get force fed. Neither guy really has a reliable second option in the passing game at this moment, with Martavis Bryant obviously being suspended, Le'Veon Bell obviously out for the Steelers as well. Eli Rogers played well, but I mean, the touchdown he caught was the flukiest thing I've ever seen in my life. And I mean, as far as AJ Green goes, like Brandon LaFell had an okay game. Boyd didn't do anything. There's still no Tyler Eifert likely this week. So, I mean, it is AJ Green, and it's been that way against the Steelers last couple of years, and the Steelers still just can't stop him.
Yeah, I mean, both these guys, I think, we obviously talked about on DraftKings a possible situation where you play both of them in case that game turns into one where they just go back and forth, which is possible here. But yeah, I think the price difference on FanDuel, it kind of makes it a little bit easier to just go with Brown. But I agree with you. I think AJ Green is certainly a viable cash game option who you have listed under GPPs, but obviously I think he's kind of going to be one of those guys who you look at and go, he's going to be an elite target guy this year and just going to have a ton of production.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And it's one of it's like the Julio Jones situation from last year almost with AJ Green where, there's literally no one else. There wasn't even an offensive line. The Bengals have a good offensive line, but the ball is going to him. Everyone knows the ball is going to him, but he's just so big, physical, and fast that, I mean, you're not going to stop it.
Yeah, I mean, we might be looking at a stretch here where it was like DeAndre Hopkins, where it was like you had those 4 or 5 weeks where he was just 100 yards and a touchdown every week, and that could be Green this week or this year.
Super Bowl today.
Jordan Matthews you talk about next year for cash games. I love his price tag this week at 6,900. Obviously a great matchup as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy that saw 14 targets last week. Once again, as we kind of come back to this, it was the Browns, so temporary expectations a little bit, but Matthews had himself a big game as well. It wasn't like the Allen Robinson 14 targets he saw, didn't really do a whole lot with them. Matthews only caught half his targets, but 7 for 114 and a touchdown. As you're looking on FanDuel, that made him the 6th highest scoring wide receiver of week 1. So, considering 3 of the guys ahead of him caught 2 touchdown passes, that's a pretty impressive line. Bears, one of those teams that, they weren't terrible in week 1, but this is still not a good defense. And you look at them last year, they were 31st against number 1 wide receivers. And Will Fuller and DeAndre Hopkins both had pretty good games in week 1. There's really no number 2 option as far as wide receivers go. You got Zach Ertz, of course, but I mean, there's really no number 2 wide receiver option that you're worried about taking targets away from him. So in this matchup, I think that Jordan Matthews is going to see easily 10, 12 targets. And I mean, his problem was never size or athleticism or skill set, really. It was the fact that he didn't have a reliable quarterback getting to him. And if Wentz plays even 2/3 as good as he did last week, he's going to have another big game, and he's really cheap.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, you look at Wentz, I thought Wentz played well, and obviously we'll take it a little bit easy with him because it was the Browns, but
same competition he was facing in D2, right?
Yeah, that's true. I like Matthews here, as you mentioned. I mean, 14 targets, that's what you kind of look for, especially at that price. And also you kind of highlight Doug Baldwin here, who's at a similar price tag that you can roll with as well.
Yeah, and I mean, Russell Wilson not 100% here, so you kind of got to monitor his status as you move forward. But, people were off him last week. I thought I had him as a cash game option, and, I mean, 9 for 92 and a touchdown in a game that they were favored to win big. Obviously, they didn't. Defense did their job. Offense, not so much. But, I mean, he's got a nice safe floor. You assume that Wilson's going to play, and, I mean, he's just going to get seen a ton of targets again, and his price just never seems to go up. anywhere. I mean, still $6,900. You could lock him in and lock in probably those top 2 receivers if you wanted.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about Baldwin, what was encouraging out of that week was they didn't play well at all, but Baldwin did. So I think that's one of those good things where he didn't really suffer. And I think it could be pretty encouraging. I mean, last year we obviously know that stretch, but he did have a low floor for most of the first half of that season. So I like him at that price.
He seems like, he's the safest option in that option or offense for sure.
Yeah, he definitely is. I mean, Jimmy Graham, Jermaine Kearse, Tyler Lockett, you can't trust those guys. Baldwin is the guy.
Yeah.
So, GPP wide receivers here. Obviously, we talked a little bit about AJ Green earlier at 8,900. I think I don't know about his ownership this week. I think it might be actually pretty low because of, OBJ and Brown still right there.
Yeah, and I mean, plus it's kind of the perception of Steelers versus the Bengals. You play the Steelers players, and I mean, for the most part, that's true. But both Dalton and Green have had pretty good games against them recently, and like we said, I mean, it's a volume play, and they haven't been able to stop him before when they know it's coming. It's one of those games that once again we expect a shootout. Last year in 3 games we saw 2 slugfests and 1 shootout, and I mean even in those low scoring games where 18-10 and I don't remember the other score, but I think both teams had under 20 points, 21-18 maybe. But I mean Green still produced in those games, so he's got a high floor. Even if this game is 16-13, you got to figure he's going 8 for 80, probably a touchdown too.
Yeah, definitely. And looking at a Broncos guy here who I like, Demaryius Thomas at $7K, reasonable price for him. It's not usually something we see him at. I'm a Colts fan, but you know what? I am a man enough to admit it that this defense is awful, and you should just be firing away with everyone that plays them.
Yeah, I mean, you're a Colts fan, but you're not an idiot. So, and you like money, so you like to you got to exploit matchups where you can. And Trevor Siemian, we saw last week, not a guy that's going to be taking a lot of shots down the field, but neither did Peyton Manning last year. It was Demaryius Thomas in the wide receiver screen game, short passes. And I mean, honestly, outside of maybe Antonio Brown, I don't think there's a better receiver in the entire league at turning a short pass into big gains like Demaryius Thomas. As of right now, he's questionable. Another one of those situations where you know how it is. Wednesday, Thursday, it's panic mode for some of these guys, but there's no indication right now that he won't play. And I mean, if I'm the Broncos, I'm force feeding CJ Anderson all day, and then I'm just getting as many short passes as I can get complete against this defense that, I mean, they got picked apart by 2 running backs last week in the passing game. So imagine what Demaryius Thomas and his huge frame can do. No Vontae Davis, I mean, no anything out here. This is going to be – you could throw him 10 short passes, and I bet you he gets 150 yards.
Yeah, no, I definitely like Thomas there. And Trevor Siemian, I mean, I saw people kind of both ways on him. They trashed him or, they liked him. I liked what I saw. I mean, thought he had some nice passes against a good Carolina defense. So, in a matchup here, that's a big upgrade for this offense. I mean, I think he'll do well.
Yeah, I agree.
In terms of value wide receivers, Tajay Sharp here for Tennessee going up against the Lions at 6K. Obviously had a really nice week here against Minnesota, who was a tougher matchup. Target 11 times. I think that's a good sign for him going forward.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like he's already got a little bit of a rapport there with Marcus Mariota, and we saw that Lions defense. This is not the defense we knew a couple years ago with Sue, and I mean, this is not a good defense at all. So this is a team that, much like the Colts, maybe not quite as much, but you're definitely going to want to pick on them. And, I mean, at a value price, not the value that he was last week, but you get a guy that saw 11 targets last week, probably going to see even more in a much better matchup than Minnesota last week. You just expect he's got a nice floor. He's a fine, secondary cash game option. I don't know that I go really overboard in GPPs, but if you just need a safe guy to kind of help you fit in some of these bigger guys and, maybe you don't want to trust guys like Demaryius Thomas because he's potentially less than 100% young quarterback. I just think he's a really safe option again this week.
And you look here, I mean, as you kind of pointed out, I mean, 5.5 point underdogs, reasonably high total in this game. I think they're going to be playing catch up. I mean, I don't see a way that defense slows down Stafford, so I think they're going to be having to throw the ball, which I kind of like Tennessee as kind of a sneaky GPP play. And as you mentioned, I think Sharp is viable in all formats at that price.
Yeah, I'm in agreement there. I think Lions will score a ton of points and the Titans will just score a little bit less. But I mean, a lot of these totals just seem too low still. I know first week kind of spoiled us, but I mean, we said it last week. Some of these just seem it seems like there should be a lot more totals in the 50s.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I mean, I think that Jacksonville San Diego one is especially.
Yeah.
Victor Cruz here, you talked about last 5,700. Obviously playing the Saints here. Bounce back in week one there. I mean, we weren't even going to be sure if he was going to play again, but I mean, looked healthy, and obviously in this matchup against the Saints, I think you'll take anyone against him.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of where I'm leaning there. He's a cheap guy. Only saw 4 targets last week, but caught all 4 for 34 and a touchdown. Obviously, he'll never again be the number one in New York, but opposing defenses aren't going to be looking to shut down Victor Cruz. They're going to be looking to try to stop Odell Beckham. The Saints aren't stopping either one of them, let's be honest. They're not stopping Sterling Shepard either, or Rashad Jennings, or anyone else that touches the ball. But I think Shepard will probably have a little bit higher of ownership than Cruz will, even if he just sees, 5, 6 targets. Eli loves to look at him in the red zone. We've seen that over the years. Not last year, obviously, because he didn't play. But he trusts Victor Cruz. And, I mean, he gets the ball to him in any situation. I mean, he throws the ball to him deep. And you're not, like we said, you're not going to game plan to stop Victor Cruz. So if they do have, some success stopping Odell Beckham, which I don't think will happen, it's just going to be too easy for the Giants. There's plenty to go around. And I think Vic Cruz will be a guy that's kind of low owned. I'm not playing him in cash games, certainly, but he's definitely a guy that could be a low owned GPP target.
Yeah, I mean, with that total, if as you mentioned, I'm in agreement that I think Shepard and OBJ are going to be the higher owned guys. If you still want to get that exposure in GPPs, and I think he's a great guy if you're kind of building multiple lineups to toss in a few.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's wrap things up with the FanDuel wide receiver analysis. Be sure to head on over to dailyfantasycafe.com for our great tools and content.